Good evening, Happy New Year, and welcome to our first council meeting of 2022. We are now called to order. The first item on tonight's agenda is the opening prayer, and I will ask Councilmember McBride to do that for us. But before I turn it over to Councilmember McBride, I'm going to try to do this without tears. We had some sad news last week. A beloved young man passed away suddenly, and there will be a memorial coming up for him. But Mr. Devontae Woodley, who we affectionately called Biggie, was like the town teddy bear. And he was a young man in his 20s who is no longer with us. And so if we could just have a brief moment of silence for him. He's lived in town his entire life and had such an impact and was like a celebrity at the community center with all the kids and staff. And then after that pause, we'll go right over to Councilmember McBride. So if we could just have a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Councilmember McBride.
Amen. Good evening, everyone. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this gathering of the new year, for all of the council members. I ask that you will bless us, help us to come together in unity and in strength. Help us to make wise decisions.
Recording in progress.
Help us to do the things that will honor and that will help the people in the town of Bladensburg. I ask that you will keep us safe, cover us under your blood, keep us safe from the COVID viruses and sicknesses and flu, anything that will damage us. God, we ask you to bless those that are bereaved today, strengthen their hearts, strengthen their minds, and let them know that their loved ones will be in a better place when they are at rest. And we thank you, Father, for all those that have lived and are living now. And we ask you to please bless us. Keep this council and help us, God, to do the work that we have been called to do, that the people have chosen us to do. We thank you and we bless your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilmember McBride, for that beautiful prayer. At this time, if you're able, please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. So as we get into the approval of the agenda, similar to the work session, I noticed we didn't have the minutes notated next to each of the items. And so during discussion, I'll ask for some adjustments there. And I know Councilmember Rout and I talked briefly before the work session started about another modification. So in order to proceed with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So say.
Moved by Councilmember McBride. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Blunt. So under new business, we have town vaccine event. So I'd ask for a friendly amendment to, or a friendly change to make that COVID so we can cover a few additional items under there, not just the town vaccination event. And the other adjustment is just looking down through the approval of minutes. If we could note 2 minutes for that section. Of course, public comments depends upon the amount that we receive, but unfinished business, 5 minutes for the bond bill. We have a lot to cover under financial business, and I believe a couple, or at least one vote. So if we make that 15 minutes, Vito, can you do that?
For the whole
20,
thing?
20, okay, 20. It's a lot to cover. I tried. I knew he was going to say no. That was more of a joke.
I'll play it by ear and try to keep it as condensed as possible, Mayor.
No worries. And then under new business, if we could just note 5 minutes per item. And then staff reports are usually 3 minutes each, so that's a total of 15 for that section. And then council reports are 5 minutes each. So any other edits or any changes? Does that sound good to everyone?
Mayor, I'll
Okay.
just add,
Mhm.
the council did not receive draft minutes for November 8th, so just the December.
Okay, thank you for that note. So we'll cross that out. All right, so with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. So this month, we don't have any special appearances, so we'll move right into the approval of the regular meeting minutes for the November 8th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Approve.
So moved by Councilmember Blunt. Is there a second?
I can't.
Second by Councilmember Rout. Any discussion, corrections, or edits? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye. Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. We'll turn it over to Mr. Charnovich to take us through the public comments.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One moment, please. Okay, so this evening, we have received 4 public comments total that I will read into the record. I'm going to read them in the order that by which I received them in my email. First comment is by Steve Whites. On January 4th, 2022, 48th Street flooded at the corner of Quincy Place. The right lane of Quincy Street flooded and water covered the corner of 48th Street. These streets can become even more dangerous due to several days of freezing temperatures due to possible ice on the streets. This street flooding has gone on year after year for many years. Prince George's County has said they need to replace a broken underground drain pipe, but it is complicated due to many underground pipes. When will this broken underground pipe be replaced? The right lane on Quincy Street keeps flooding due to the dirt gutter, which washes dirt down the street and then clogs up the drains. When will this Quincy Street dirt gutter be replaced with a cement gutter to stop the flooding and stop eroding the dirt bank? 7 years ago, there were state highway project plans to install a sidewalk on Quincy Street. 2 years ago, Senator Malcolm Augustine said he would help get the Quincy Street project done. What is the project number for this Quincy Street project, and when will this project be done? Prince George's County has budgeted $15.8 million ARP money for stormwater drains, maintenance, and flood mitigation to be spent in 2022. There is very little money budgeted for 2023 and no money for 2024. Bladensburg needs to push Prince George's County to get these flood and drainage problems fixed in 2022, while Prince George's County has the ARP money available. After 5 years of no maintenance, they are finally cleaning out and repairing our stormwater drain culverts. These stormwater drains got clogged and flooded in 2020. I am asking Bladensburg to set up a town map showing all of the flooding locations and list flood prevention plans to address flood issues in Bladensburg. I am asking Bladensburg to work with the Prince George's County Flood Assessment and Mapping Team to resolve our flooding problems. I am asking Bladensburg to budget ARPA funding to use plants, etc., to stop dirt washout and replace dirt stormwater drains with cement drains. Many residents need help and flood prevention information to stop flooding in their yards, in their houses. Thank you, Steve Weiss. Grab some water here. All right, our second comment is from Susan McCutchen. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and fellow Bladensburg residents. I sincerely hope 2022 will be a better year than 2021. There was so much tragedy with few good moments by comparison. Our country is in great peril on so many levels. I ask everyone to become involved in activities from promoting voting rights to supporting legislation that concerns many important issues at local, state, and federal levels. This can start with becoming involved at the local level in the town of Bladensburg, including attending town meetings and serving on key committees. We cannot and should not depend on the council and staff to do everything for us on our behalf, and then level criticism at every turn when we have done little or nothing ourselves to improve Bladensburg. The same applies to state and national issues. Ignorance and complacency will be our ultimate downfall in so many ways. I applaud the council for holding meetings with town staff, businesses, and residents regarding how to spend American Rescue Plan funds. I participated in the sparsely attended meetings with businesses and residents, but understand residents are also sending in their ideas. I encourage more people to send in their comments. We residents need to participate whenever and wherever possible when offered the opportunity. And we can always call and write our representatives to offer our ideas or questions. On the SC Maglev issue, although the pause by the Federal Railroad Administration continues, our Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit and Citizens Against the SC Maglev volunteers are occupied anticipating related legislative issues in the Maryland General Assembly and at the federal level. We are monitoring actions being taken by the Baltimore-Washington Rapid Rail Northeast Maglev Transportation Project developers. We thank Mayor James for her unwavering support and willingness to assist by testifying and serving as a presenter at many meetings, despite her town and job commitments. This includes recording a presentation as part of a video to be shown by the Friends of the Earth Japan at a virtual meeting and Q&A session originating from Japan in late January. Our work demonstrates what can be done by volunteers, regular people willing to put in varying degrees of time and effort to support various initiatives and to lobby elected officials to gain their support to address an issue of community concern without the persuasive powers of corporate big bucks. Thank you. Everyone, please take care of yourselves in these harrowing times. Susan McCutchen. We are halfway there. Our third public comment is from Jessica Carroll. Dear Town Clerk, I would like to raise the issue of the parking situation with the Town Council, particularly focused on safety. As we all know, the streets are very tight throughout the town and many are quite full with cars. Cars are frequently parked within the yellow curbs, which are there for the safety and visibility of drivers. In particular, the intersection of Spring Road and 54th Place is very dangerous due to the parking situation and the lack of a stop sign. It is very difficult to see when turning, and worse when cars are frequently parked within the yellow no parking zone. Many cars speed through the street because there is no stop sign on Spring Road. At many points while driving through the neighborhood, I have been unable to pull over to allow another car through because there is no open space on the street. Furthermore, with the recent snowstorm, we have seen that it does not allow for adequate snow removal. I hope that the Town Council and the Police Department will think through innovative solutions to the parking situation throughout the town. Many thanks, Jessica Carroll. And our last public comment for this evening is from Mrs. Carletta Lundy. Dear Mayor, Town Council, and town staff, regarding the town's volunteer application, I am interested in opportunities to stay connected. Although it is not posted, it is unclear what is the deadline to submit a volunteer application. I appreciate the opportunity at some point to submit my application as a resident of Bladensburg to serve on one or more of the town committees. However, at my last look earlier today, it's challenging because there is not enough information being provided for me to take a thoughtful and informed decision. I would not want to submit my application and later must resend it. So it would be beneficial and helpful if some of the information I'm sharing be considered and the application be revised. Prior to my departure from the Bladensburg Town Council as a Ward 2 council member, I expressed in writing to my colleagues and staff some of my questions and concerns regarding the volunteer application. At that time, I did receive feedback regarding my questions and concerns. So now I would request that if not done so prior to today, that members of our mayor and council look at the application and consider having the staff look at some of my areas of concern and consider revising the application. I am aware that everyone may not agree with the following, but no matter the past, we can choose to begin again. Currently, there is no term mentioned on the posted volunteer application for any of the positions. It would be helpful to understand when completing an application what the expectation of volunteering for a position is. Is it for 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 or 4 years? How long? There are no committee descriptions given for each area of volunteer opportunity and no meeting time, day detail information being shared, or if residents can choose more than one area of volunteer interest. Perhaps if the meeting day and time detailed information was mentioned, along with other pertinent information, then it would help in deciding about which committee to submit an application. However, you are being asked that, and I may understand why, but I will not assume, to give your education, professional background, your civic experience, volunteer work, memberships, offices held, among other information that is being requested. Whereas asking the above questions is allowable, I still hope the mayor and council, along with the staff, will keep in mind the benefits of having residents submit their application to volunteer, which may include but not be limited to the following. Number 1, to make an impact within the town. Number 2, to contribute to helping the town accomplish sustainable goals. Number 3, to do something you care about. Number 4, to have an opportunity to give back. Number 5, to develop new skills or provide an opportunity to enhance existing skills. Number 6, to get involved and meet your neighbors and fellow residents or connect with people you already have a relationship with. Number 7, to partner with fellow residents and be exposed to diverse cultures. Number
That's
8,
time. Sorry, I put a clock up at 3 minutes, so just wanted to make you aware of that, but I'm sure you didn't see it because you were reading. I apologize, Rich. So that was 3 minutes plus.
okay. I'm at the end.
Miss-
Can we just
Mr.
conclude?
Charnovich, if you don't mind just emailing those to the council, I'm not sure if we received those. I think we got the other 3 public comments, but just if you don't mind emailing them so we can read the comments in their entirety and follow up on them.
Yeah, Mayor, I received both of those at approximately 4 p.m. So
Oh,
I did forward those. I did forward them along, but it was we got them about 90 minutes before the work session.
no worries.
So
Thank you.
if you don't have it, I can send again, but I did send them along earlier.
Yeah, no problem. I think everyone was in prep mode at that point and may have missed them. But thank you so much
Understood.
for everyone who took the time to submit public comments. We always appreciate your feedback and suggestions. The next item on the agenda following public comment is it's a bit of a recap from the work session, the State of Maryland bond bill recommendation for town hall replacement. So did you want to do just a brief recap, Mr. McGrory? And then I'm going to ask the council to take a formal vote just to reaffirm that we have direction from the body to move forward on that front.
Thank you, Mayor. direction would be much appreciated. And just to recap, as was discussed over many months and years, I'm sure staff and many members of this council have been aware of the situation with our capital plant and our facilities, not only at Town Hall, but the annex where we've got staff and the Public Works Department. Many of our facilities are in need of upgrade. A specific priority would be to upgrade, improve, or rebuild Town Hall. And the goal of this agenda item is to sort of put the wheels in motion to submit a bond bill before the state legislature to facilitate that request. It would require staff immediately to accelerate our conversations about this. We are all agreed that we need a new facility, but it would be actually getting down to the square footage, the style and type of amenities we would need to create. Oops, sorry, that's the 3-minute on cycle.
Your time is up, sorry. No.
I guess I've timed myself out, which is a fine segue to say, I think our staff is very capable of jumping into the mode of getting a bond bill together and at least, getting the initial paperwork in with the fiscal notes, et cetera. But there is work to be done on that, and the legislative boost from the council by its formal action tonight would be helpful in motivating us to make this our top priority over the next several weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGrory. So with that, I'll entertain a motion from the council to proceed with staff and the town council moving forward for a state of Maryland bond bill for the purpose of the town hall replacement. Is there a motion?
So move.
So move.
Moved
Okay.
by Councilmember Rout. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Brown. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. And we really look forward to moving this project forward. The next items fall under financial business. And so with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Tonelli to take us through the fiscal year 2022 budget, and then the fiscal, sort of the year in review, the ordinance, and then get into the fiscal year 2023 budget and tax differential and the budget process planning review.
Okay, everybody hear me okay? Quick sound check, thumbs up, okay, good. We're going to review the financials. We are at the midpoint of the year, of the fiscal year, so we're 6 months in, so we have a good benchmark. 50% of the year has passed, so we can see how we're doing compared to budget, and also helps us to prepare and think about the budget cycle for this upcoming fiscal year for FY23. So I'm going to go ahead and okay, so everybody can see this okay. I have this as a side-by-side format just so it shows up a little bit better on here. What I do every month, what I have been doing is do a what I like to call is a financial dashboard. And I'm gonna start my own timer over here before Bob times me out. So, so I do like a financial dashboard, and this is to summarize where we are with the financials. For the financial summary, the revenues are here, the major revenue items coming down here, and this is year to date through December, budget and variance compared to budget. And again, this is just like a quick dashboard, and also have the same items compared to this point last fiscal year, year to date. So you can see from the revenues that we are ahead of budget, and that is understandable because the property taxes, the real estate taxes are collected in December, along with the personal property taxes. A lot of the assessments from last fiscal year are filed this fiscal year, but we are, as you can see, very much ahead of where we were last year. So that's a good sign that the economy is improving. Income and other taxes, again, this is just a summary of the revenue. This is under budget, but that's because the tax filing deadlines aren't until April 15th, and then there's a 60-day extension out to June 15th. We don't see those revenues until towards the end of the fiscal year. Licenses and permits, close to budget. A lot of that is collected at the end of the fiscal year. That's a timing issue. The Fed, state, and county funding is the state highway user funds and also the state aid from the state aid for police. And I'll show you the detail of these. Again, I'm just going through a quick snapshot here. Service charges are under because $100,000 of this budget is for the traffic calming plan. I guess we could say that's going to be instituted soon. So far we don't have any revenues against that, but that is the bulk of the budgeted revenues there. And other revenues include items like fines and fees, forfeitures, and also for insurance reimbursements. We have restricted grants here. We did not have anything budgeted, but the CDBG grant carried over into this fiscal year, which is why we showed the revenue there. We were slated to complete that last year, but did not get completed until December 31st of this year. And then we have the fund balance transfer, which is the which balances the budget. So you can see where 65% of the revenues have been received through December. Now we get down to operating expenses. Again, this is just a quick snapshot. We are under expenses with 46% of the budget expended. Remember that benchmark was 50% of the year. And you can see we're very close to last year. All things being equal, you can see that the numbers there between total revenues and expenses are within a few $1,000s. So we are pretty consistent overall. Then the next part of the dashboard is the summary by department. And this is, the town has, I'm going to skip down real quick over here. The town has these departments that is we base our budget on, and you can see those here. The mayor and council is a department, town administrator, clerk, and finance. These four departments I call our general and administrative, or our support functions. And then we get into providing the service to the residents. That is public safety, public works, and grant funded opportunities. And again, these are presented in detail, and I summarize them on this dashboard. And you can see down here is the budget for each department and how each department is doing year to date compared to budget. Again, that 50% point is the is kind of like the target, I guess you could say. And it's the same info here. The revenues are summarized up here, and then I run it down by departments. So next 5 minutes exactly. Just going to run through some of the department financials, and also throw graphs in here. Everybody likes graphs. You put a dashboard out there, you got to throw some graphs out there. You want something, because people don't want to look. I don't expect everybody, to be an expert in all these line items, but it's out there every single month for comparison purposes. You look back to FY16 or 17, all the same information is out there. So just trying to keep it consistent. But that's why I try to do a dashboard, is just so something quick and easy. And you can also see, like on the graphs here, how the revenues by line item are doing compared to budget, and how the departments are doing compared to budget. Easy enough. Okay, so then we get into the budget summary over here, and this is the detail of the revenues. Remember I said there's property taxes, income tax, and other taxes, licenses and permits. You can see like the breakdown here of individual items. This gets more into detail, but it's the same information that as above, but now I'm showing it in a more detailed format. And again, this is shared every single month. The expenses, okay, so the expenses here in this budget summary are consolidated. All the departments are brought back in together to give a consolidated expenditure report. So you can see like the telephones, which might, or I'm sorry, like salaries or pay might be spread out across all the departments. Here, it's all combined. Okay, so you can see like we're total at 48% of budget for salaries. Problem with that is our workers' comp came in actual quite a bit higher, and that's happened to when I was at Mako, it happened to everybody across the state. It hit everybody because Chesapeake Employers is the main insurer for all the municipalities and counties, and everybody got hit with pretty much a reassessment. So now we're all kind of like talking in the background, you know, who can we go with and everything else. So, but not to talk too much about that, just getting down into the last couple minutes, just getting that down to the meat of the department financials. And this is something that, you know, I would like you all to start thinking about, because this is what we're going to be talking about during the budget process. Now, we've always presented this way. It's not the treasurer's budget, it's really the town administrator's budget. So I'll be working with Mr. McGrory, maybe do a different budget presentation, because, you know, it becomes a town administrator's budget until it's adopted by the mayor and council. So I'll be working with Mr. McGrory, who'll be driving a lot of this, and we'll take you all through that. New council members, renewed council members, current council members. We look forward to the process. Getting down into, you can see the individual financials here for like the town administrator, town clerk, again, your administrative functions, finance department. And the thought is really for the administrative functions, they really could be combined under like the town administrator, because that is the support function. You know, all these departments are the support function for your service providers, like your public safety, which includes code enforcement, communications, cops unit, and then into public works. Public works department includes our highway projects, and which are funded by the highway user fees. And then our last department here is the grants. Again, there's no budget for the grants this year because we thought the CDBG project would be wrapped up a lot quicker than it did, and it kind of stalled out this summer. So, but grants is normally income in and back out again. There's no surplus to the town or deficit to the town. It's money in and money back out again. Unless there is an administrative piece, which there rarely is. The question came up about the ARPA funding. How are we going to show this? It's going to be similar to a department statement. I want to keep it separate. And it'll be federal funds coming in and ARPA grant expenditures going out. So that is how that will be presented going forward once we identify sources for projects. And I'm right at 10 minutes there, so I'm going to stop right there with the financials. I'll take some questions.
Mr. McGrory, I do see your hand. Did you have a question for Mr. Tonelli?
No, I was just going to jump in with two things. One was a time check, and two, I wanted to frame the pivot from that mention of the ARPA funding to the next sub piece of the agenda. But if council members have questions, certainly this would be a great time to have.
Yeah, let me just pause first before we transition. So from the council members, are there any questions for Mr. Tonelli about the mid-year review on our financials? Okay. All right, over to you, Mr. McGrory.
Thank you. So as Mr. Tonelli mentions, the ARPA funding we didn't have cash in hand. We now have 50% of that funding has been conveyed to the town, but we have not done a budget amendment. So obviously knew some number was coming and had an idea of what that number might be. The number had changed in a couple of areas when it was communicated to us through a couple of different government organs. And so now we've got half of the $4.9 million in hand and another half coming later this fiscal year, we believe. So have put forward sort of placeholder budget ordinance to, one, receive that money into the income side of the budget, and two, be able to expend some of that money on the outflow. And I know during these visioning sessions and previous to that, we've shared ideas among the council and staff, the community, the residents, businesses, about their interests in things that the ARPA money could be spent on. One of those things that was already mentioned during the work session was the ARPA grants manager position. So by formalizing this budget amendment, we would pull in some of that money and be able to into the revenue side of the budget and be able to spend it on the expenditure side. So the next item on the agenda, 9A12 or I2, is to do first reading of a fiscal 22 budget amendment. And I would anticipate, I'm going to ask Mr. Charnovich if he would do the reading when you're ready for it, Mayor. But just wanted to frame it. So you see there are no numbers put in there. And the only two items that appear so far are one, showing on the plus column, an addition on the expenditure side for the ARPA funds. And then the second item is showing equal amount that would be outflow. And this would be zero net budget impact. I anticipate that by the time we get to second reading next month, we will have turned this into what is customarily a clearinghouse budget amendment, sort of a mid-year check-in of, hey, where are we on overtime expenses, on some unforeseen expenses that may have come up. We may have additional things that we know, and I think we're going to talk about later in the agenda. In addition to the ARPA grants manager, I know the council members have discussed some specific items they want to fund ASAP out of that ARPA funding. So we will, over the next month, put together a full-scale budget amendment with other items that will be recommended by staff and certainly then available for the council's debate, modification, and decision. So if there are questions from the council, I can take those on the substance, and then otherwise we can turn it over to Mr. Charnovich for first reading of the budget amendment.
Sure. And so I know tonight is just the first reading. So presumably if the council does vote in favor of it, the figures will need to be plugged in for the final reading. So this can be posted and communicated to the public. And right now, as you said, we've received about half of the funding. So is it not appropriate to drop that in here since we already know what we're working from at this point?
So it's a great question. The funding can be spent, can be committed between now, it must be committed, sorry, I should say, between now and the end of calendar 2024, and can then be spent on even beyond that for an additional year or two. So I think the timing of how much of that money you deploy, what we would deal with in the current fiscal 22 budget is what we intend and can actually spend between now and July 1st of 2022. So whether we pull in 1 million out of that 5 million and spend another million in fiscal year 23 and another million in fiscal 24 and the final in fiscal 25, et cetera. So I think the timing is all to be determined, but if we have specific items, and that's not to say that this is the first and only budget amendment that we should do, and if we over budget on the revenue side and don't expend all the funds, obviously we can carry over those funds into a future fiscal year. Does all that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you for that explanation. I see two hands so far. Councilmember Rout.
Thank you. Let me lower my hand. Thank you. So I do have a question as it relates to what budget category it would be in. Would it be under a restricted, would it be under grants and it would be restricted for the purposes of ARPA?
Mm-hmm.
Or would it just be included in the you confused me when you said to accept it into a revenue, which because there are specific, it's a grant that we received and it's specific allocations. I was under the impression it would be restricted and it would be under the grants line item. So why would it not be there? I just don't understand.
Yeah, and so Mr. Tilley and I have talked about this. I anticipate there are different ways one could handle this from a budgetary perspective. The revenue side would presumably come in a specific line item under federal grants or intergovernmental transfers. What Mr. Tilley has recommended, and I fully support this recommendation, one opportunity would be to say, well, the money we're going to spend on police overtime, for example, or capital equipment for police could appear in the police budget as a budget line item modification there. We could put some under general administration for delivering health services, for example. We could put some under mayor and council for doing educational events related to COVID. Those are just some examples. Mr. Tinelli's recommendation, which I support, is to classify all those expenditures under its own category, basically creating a new department as ARPA. And that would appear in the budget over the next several fiscal years until this program ends and then fall off the budget. I see the advantage of that as being that the rest of your departments will all continue at sort of a steady state of the ebb and flow of annual funding, where you can compare it with prior years and over many years and project out into the future without receiving a sudden bolus of funding in one particular year. So again, does that answer the question?
Thank you for that response, Mr. McGrory. Councilmember Brown, I see your hand.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for that, and you may have already answered my question, but to Council Member Route's point as well, the that funding would it just go? I mean, in terms of the instead of putting it in the grant section for the opera, instead of putting it in the grant section, it would have its own kind of its own funding reporting specific to.
Yes. So again, I'll let Vito really jump in with a specific and likely more detailed answer, but
And before,
I would say,
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. McGrory, just to jump in, because I know some conversations took place before you were hired. I know just one off the top of my head with Councilmember Route and just talking about the funding once we knew what the old amount was, not the amount we actually got. But I was stressing, and from what I recall, she agreed, it's critical that we have this money completely separate from the other budgets that we have. And so we want to make sure this funding is audited and there's no issues or challenges with any of it. And so I believe that is why Mr. Tinelli was proposing to put this as a separate budget so that it's not being confusing because it's captured under the other departments. And so, I just want to make sure my colleagues still feel the same way. I know some of us, again, had separate conversations about this last year and just out of extreme concern, want to make sure that it's as transparent as possible, not just for us, but also for the residents, because we publicize the information, we make these reports available. We want to make it easy for them to follow along and follow the trail in terms of where this money is received, where it's being spent from, and specifically what the uses are. So, but I just wanted to jump in with that, but I know you were asking Mr. Tinelli to clarify further. Mr. Tinelli?
And that's correct. I mean, because of the amount of funding, it's going to be subject to a single audit, which the program is going to have its own separate audit. And it's easier if and there's going to be reporting requirements to the feds too. So this is going to be down to the penny, of course. And on our side, for presentation side, for budgeting and financials, what we do internally and externally here, it will be its own department because we have to try to, right now, the funds are in a separate account. I mean, the funds right now are not even commingled. I mean, they are in our investment account with the state in a separate account. So just things like that. And it's, I guess what would help is as we get closer to identifying projects, what we're going to do with this, you know, we can go ahead and start building a chart of accounts and how we are going to properly show this, you know, once we get direction from the mayor and council.
And that, again, just makes it that much easier for the reporting so we can clearly see what line items these expenses are going to. But I don't want to go too long. I want to get over to Councilmember Blunt. I saw her hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You kind of answered my question, but I know we're going to hire an opera grant manager. So what type of input would he have? Maybe he might not want to do it that way. Would he have that option to do it his way, or collectively? How would that be done if he decides this is not the way he want to go, because it's not best for the town? I'm just for clarification, like you said, and transparency, because I'm saying the money already spent and we haven't done anything yet. Pretty much, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you, Councilmember Blunt. But between, and I'm calling all of you experts, from Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Rout, you know, each of us in the staff who've worked with grants, this was something we talked about based on our collective ideas and thoughts. And so no disrespect to that individual coming in, but just having it separated out from all the other departments, I think you all are right. That's our best decision at this point. I can't imagine what else they would come in with in terms of a recommendation for reporting, but I think it's up to us too, because ultimately we'll be responsible for every dime. So we need to agree on how we want to make sure that it is captured in our budget and you know, reported on. So I get that, but ultimately it's on us. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
And when we have a meeting to, I know that Vito and Bob has been talking about it, but we have a meeting collectively to even know where they want the money to go. Because I mean, I don't know, I'm hearing what you're saying tonight, but would there be a meeting with the whole council just to discuss every bit of that dollar from beginning to ending?
Absolutely. And that is part of the process we need to go through. So we gathered input from staff, and then we did the businesses and then the residents. So the staff will get us all those notes.
Okay,
and
great.
then we are going to have to sit down collectively as a council and meet to prioritize. So no, that hasn't happened yet. And so they're really focused on how to report out, you know, on that money, how to capture it. They're not getting into the weeds on how it should be spent at this point. And even with that grants manager, we'll obviously want their input, but again, ultimately it's our decision. After hearing from our stakeholders, hearing from residents, we have to be responsive to the needs that they've put forth. And so we'll put that plan together as a team. Okay, because I wasn't part of the meeting, so I would love to see what everybody would like to spend their money on and notes. And I think Bob McGorry said he would send out us notes on all the meetings to let them know what everybody decided. Exactly. So I look forward to getting those notes. Thank you. Yep. And then, you know, council member, we may have ideas that weren't reflected in any of the visioning sessions. So at least it gives us that opportunity to bring those in. And then once we have everything on the table, we'll start having the conversation. Okay. Thank you. No problem. Mr. McGorry, I want to just toss it back to you. So I know the next step, or actually, let me just scroll. I'm sorry, my screen is shifting. Councilmember Brown, I'm sorry, that I'm glad I checked. I see your hand now.
Looks like she took her hand down, Mayor.
Okay, that was sorry, the boxes are shifted on me, but
okay, no, I said thanks, Mayor. I'm sorry, okay. No, I said thanks. I didn't have my mute on. Just real quick, you know, that's well said. And to piggyback on what you were saying and thought is that in for a grants person, I mean, that would just, you know, give them that budget and oversight, and where it's not commingled or it's not mixed with the other budget, and they could just, you know, focus directly on that, and it shows full transparency and everything. So, but yeah, and the vision session was good as well, because we had residents, we've had a lot of good ideas And no money has been spent up to date from that, because we just received in 50%.
Right. Thank you for that, Councilmember Brown. So, Mr. McGray, I think that's all the hands. Let me just scroll. So the next step you were proposing was the first reading of the ordinance. So do you want to move forward and have Mr. Charnovich proceed with the reading?
Yes, that's exactly the path. And I'll just qualify that when you hear him say mystery number or zeros or number to be determined later in the ordinance, you'll understand that that's a placeholder for the specific numbers that we're going to pull in by next meeting. Mr.
Great,
Charnovich?
thank you. Mr. Charnovich?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this evening, we have a first reading that town staff is presenting for a budget amendment ordinance. It will be ordinance number 1 of 2022 for fiscal year 2022. It is an ordinance to amend the operating budget of the town of Bladensburg, Maryland for the 2022 fiscal year, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Whereas the town administrator of the town of Bladensburg has made a request to the mayor and town council to amend the FY22 budget to reallocate funds as part of this fiscal year. And whereas the mayor and town council have determined that it is in the best interest of the town of Bladensburg to grant the request of the town administrator, and whereas the mayor and town council of the town of Bladensburg have determined that it is in the best interest of the town to pass this as a budget amendment ordinance at the February 14th, 2022 town council meeting. Now therefore be it enacted and ordained by the mayor and town council of the town of Bladensburg that the following amendments are made to the general operating budget for fiscal year 2022. Number 1, increase intergovernmental federal reserve by an amount to be determined for ARPA American Rescue Plan Act funds. Number 2, create a new budget expenditure category for ARPA American Rescue Plan Act funded in the amount of, at an amount to be determined, and the net budget impact is $0. And be therefore enacted and ordained that upon passage, this ordinance shall be authenticated by the signature of the mayor and town clerk and shall be recorded in a book kept for that purpose. In addition, this ordinance shall be published by posting a certified copy of it in the town hall for 10 days following its adoption pursuant to Article 2, Section 209 of the Charter of the town of Bladensburg, Maryland, and will be effective the 14th day of February, 2022.
Great, thank you,
With that,
Mr. Charnovich. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're welcome, Mayor. I was just going to say with that, that concludes the first reading.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then the next item is the fiscal year 2023 budget. Mr. Tonelli, we are coming back to you, I believe, for this one, or is that you, Mr. McGrory?
Well, I'll just kick it off to say that I very much look forward to participating in the front end of the budget process. As was mentioned, I came in, I think I was hired at the last, what was intended to be the last action item at the June meeting in 2021. When the budget was presumed to be adopted, there were some changes made over the following week, and the budget was adopted in my first full week on the job. So I'm really looking forward to working with the staff and the council to tease out their recommendations for the content of the fiscal year 2023 budget. And in talking about this, as I think was previewed at the last work session last month, Mr. Tonelli had requested to put in an info item on the tax differential. And as we talked about it, we really kind of fleshed out all of these items that have been under this category because the tax differential gives a great window into the budgeting process and the difference in funding between county government and town government and where they overlap. So Mr. Tonelli's got a presentation to that effect. And with that, I will turn it over to him. Although I see a hand up from Councilmember Rout.
So hold on for us, just a quick moment, Mr. Tonelli, Councilmember Route. Sorry about that. I didn't see your hand. I need to keep
It's
scrolling.
okay. I'm not following, and maybe I'm just slow. If we are increasing the budget and adding a budget expenditure category, then the budget impact would not be zero. It will be amount determinant because the budget would then increase, or am I wrong? I just don't understand. Mr. Tonelli, maybe you can help me, Mr. McGrory. I'm really lost.
Mr.
Thank you.
McGrory, I see your hand.
Yeah, so it's a net impact of zero. So in other words, as with the budget, you are budgeting income. So say you pull in $200,000 this fiscal year of the ARPA funding into the plus side of the revenue side of the budget, and you're pulling out that same amount, 200,000. That is the amount you intend to spend this year. So it's an equal amount. So the net budget impact is zero. There is an effect on the budget. There's numbers added here and numbers added there, and there will be a bunch of those, but the net effect is zero, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Does that answer the question? Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Tonelli, back over to you.
Sure. We'll talk about the tax differential process. I haven't presented anything to the council about this. And good, I did a presentation, I think 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years. I think it's 4 years ago about this. And so I think it's a great topic. It's a topic that helps the residents, and I'll go into it. Set my timer, Mayor, so I don't go over. Because I can talk and talk and talk. So, okay. Since we just talked about budget, this gets into why we talk about tax differential. I like to say Bladensburg is a service-oriented, is similar to a service-oriented business, meaning that those areas in orange are our FY22 expenditures by department, and those are the town services that are provided. With public safety being the largest chunk, almost 2/3 of our budget goes to public safety, and public works, which is another sizable portion of the budget. And those items there in blue are, again, the general and administrative support functions to provide services to the town. So you can see 81% of our budget is to provide direct services to the town. Now, and as I said, public safety, we have 24/7 police patrol, 24/7 911 dispatch center, code enforcement and community outreach. Public Works is responsible for the maintenance of our roads, trash collection, and also for street lighting. And other things that are into the what I call service oriented expenses are our community services, meaning our grants and programs and community activities we provide to the residences. I'm sorry, to the residents, and also support to our volunteer fire department. And we do this because as a municipality, we can provide the services better since we are closer to the residents. Now, what we talk about with the tax differential, this is from the county and just highlighted a few areas here. And these are the main points. The tax differential is used to reduce the county government portion of the property tax bill the residents are paying for services that the town already provides. So, and this does not affect the revenues coming into the town. This is strictly what the residents and business owners pay on their tax bill. The tax differential lowers the county tax rate the residents are paying and the businesses are paying, so they're not taxed twice for the same service. And the timetable is in October and November, we applied to the county, and it's a lengthy process. We have to do a lot of narratives, a lot of justification of our services, and why basically we are doing a better job or doing something instead of the county providing the service. So we have to make the justification to get a lower tax rate for our residents and businesses. And I'll walk you through an example here shortly. And this is something from the county. I pulled back up, say from 2016, same thing again. The county established the municipal tax rate differential program to avoid the double taxation to residents for programs and services that the municipalities are providing. Okay, I don't expect you to go through this whole thing, but here is how the county and we come up with the tax rate differential. And this column here, the county assigns the tax the residents pay to the county, I believe, right, is $1 per $100 of assessed real property tax. I'm just going to focus on the real property tax. There's a separate calculation for business personal property, but for timing's sake and for residents, I just want to focus on the real property tax rate. There's also a whole calculation follows this for the business personal property tax. So the county assigns a value of their tax rate to provide public works, which is for engineering, the cost of public works vehicles, for human services, and then you get into the police services here, which is police dispatch, patrol, volunteer fire department, and a small area down here for animal management, and also for street lights. So the county takes a look at their budget and assigns, and they back out the overhead costs. So it's just direct costs to provide these services. And then we say, hey, as a town over here, we are providing the same services. Okay, so we are providing 100% of public works. Human services, we're providing 20% because we do community services, and it's based on how much you do in certain areas and everything for qualifications. We do 100% of police dispatch and so forth. It goes down. Volunteer fire, we could contribute to the fire department, so we get a tax differential there. Street lights, even though we have our own street lights, it's based on the street lights per capita. I believe we have 482 street lights, and that's divided by the residents, and it goes into the calculation. So anyway, it comes down to a rate here that the county says this is your tax differential. It's used to discount what the residents pay on their property taxes. And it fluctuates. And it fluctuates based on basically on what's available, what the county has available to give out. So it's based on their fund balance, their anticipated revenues, and also the assessable tax base. The county has been very generous to us. You can see where it dipped, in tougher times, but overall they have been very generous. And we've even, like, when it's dipped down here, we've even appealed it. And so far, because we're fighting for the residents basically to pay a lower tax. Real quick, I won't go through this whole thing, but let's just say that a property is assessed at $208,000. This would be the town tax that the resident would pay on it, and the county tax rate. So you come up with the full tax there. Okay, that's what the residents see on the property tax bill. Okay, that's if there's no tax differential and they're paying the full boat of that county tax. Okay, tax differential says, hey, we're going to discount your county tax rate by the previous 3 years average tax differential. Nothing's easy with accounting. They just can't take the one figure, so they got to average it out. So, but that's, government. So, it's all good. So just as long as, the residents are getting a discount on their tax bill. So here's an actual tax bill. Okay. I took the address off, and this is the last slide because I'm at 6 minutes rounded way down. So you can see the the town tax is there, but the county tax for this resident got discounted down, okay? And that's these two items here. It's not paying that full boat of that $2,100, so they're discounted down. Okay, so it's only $300 or $400 per resident, but multiply this by how many single homes do we have in the town, you know? And this does not come to the town, okay? This is a discount that the residents and businesses are paying on their property tax bills. So we go through this every year. We make a very solid case because, of course, we want the biggest bang, you know, for the buck for our residents. So I just wanted to touch on that because as we build the budget, we have to justify what we're doing in the budget, providing services to our residents to go back to the county and saying, hey, this is our budget. We're providing these services so that the county does not have to, because we're providing it. So, hey, cut them a break. So, and that's what the tax differential is kind of in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Tonelli. And thank you also for going back and appealing when we don't always get, you know, some of the percentage numbers that we won on the categories that you had up on the screen. Because any time we can help save the residents money, it's a huge win for them. As you said, it doesn't come into town revenues, it's money going back to our town residents, which is very, very important. So we definitely appreciate that overview. Give me 1 second to scroll. Okay, I see a hand from Councilmember Rout.
Thank you, Mayor James. So question, Mr. Tonelli, I know during the COVID-19 pandemic, the town has provided, in my opinion, more services to our residents than the county. Is there a way that we can get credit for all of like the food services that we have brought in? You know, the COVID-19 response, is there a public health emergency category?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that because I brought up for like community services that we are bringing an ARPA grant manager. We're going to be doing a lot more community events. And they said, well, the ARPA funding's separate. You know, you can't apply for that because that's already its own separate pie. So that was the first appeal I lost. Yeah, and I was like, really? You know, it's still coming into the town. We're still providing the service. But we did get 20% of that category because of the other services. But the grading scale there is you have to provide, you know, rental assistance. You have to provide a lot of individualized support functions versus like a broad community events or outreach. And I tried, and we were not successful in that appeal for that. But the only positive side about that is the community services was a small portion of the tax differential, and they expanded some of the other services for public safety. One of the strange things they really focused on this year was animal control. A lot of questions about animal control and justification about it, and we had some conversations about what happens when there's an animal complaint. What do we do? And we had to put all the steps in there, and then we got knocked down because we don't have a per se animal holding facility. But you know, I think we put loose animals in the holding cell before. I'm like, hey, you know, we have a holding cell. And they said, no, it's not a separate facility. I said, it is separate with the doors closed. I mean, it just goes down to that much detail. You know, the whole time you're trying to, you know, you're looking for pennies more on that tax rate to be reduced. So, but we did get, what did I see, 10% or 20% animal control. I thought we would get 0. So hopefully that answers
Does
the
that
question.
answer? Okay, great.
Nothing is 100% clear with this, you know, so you just keep throwing it all out there and throwing it all out there and throwing it all out there. So
Yeah, it's about as clear as mud, right?
It's all good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the overview, not just for the council, but also for our residents on tax differential. Hopefully, many of them better understand what it is all about, how it benefits them, and the importance of it, and appreciate your advocacy for that. And before we let you off the hook, Mr. Tonelli, we also have the budget process preview. So if you want to just at a high level talk through what we need to be thinking about going into the spring, our many budget meetings and so forth, and that timeline, just we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Bob, do you want me to take us on, or do you want to take a lead on it?
I'll jump in with a couple sentences and maybe we can leave it at that, given the hour. I think the intent of putting this on was the natural conclusion of this is not only working as a budget modification for the fiscal year we're currently in, but starting the budget development process. So this is when, as we look at the mid-year reports and see how well did we do in estimating what we were going to be spending money on a year ago as we were developing last year's budget, as the town was developing last year's budget. And then the modifications that come out of that in planning for next year's budget. So over the coming month and 2 months in particular, I'll be working very closely with senior staff and taking into account the very lively discussion among all the staff and the citizenry about the ARPA funding visioning sessions and working on the budget development process. So by next month or within the next 90 days or so, you'll have some ideas on high-level categories that the staff wants to expand in the coming year, as well as a budget timeline for the development and hopefully timely adoption of the budget this fiscal year. So I'm not sure there's a whole lot more we need to say at this point than that. But Mr. Tonelli, anything to add? Or sorry, Mayor, I defer back to you.
No.
Thank you, Mr. McGrory. Mr. Tonelli, any additional remarks?
No, that was the goal of all this, as Mr. McGrory said, is kind of get everybody thinking about the budget process, what goes into it, and just to touch on the financials and everything. So it's, you know, as he said, he's going to be, you know, helpful in driving all this, because again, it is a town administrator's a budget. So, you know, and and we're just there to support the town, the mayor and council. So we will come up with a timeline as it gets closer. I mean, we are at the half-year point. We normally start this in March and April, but we can really start this at any given time. So, and we typically do the budget sessions and the constant yield discussion April, May. So, but you know, we can go till June. You can start in March. So it's just this is just to get everybody primed and thinking about it.
Yep, trying to warm up those
Yeah.
brain muscles and get ready for all those spreadsheets. I love it. Well, thank you again. We'll proceed on to new business. And Mr. McGrory, I'll turn it back over to you to walk us through the position classification plan update.
Thank you. Well, just looking at the current budget, we are budgeted this year for in excess of $3 million for compensation. So the compensation is a huge proportion of our budget and obviously has a very real life impact on the staff who serve the town so well. And so the main goal of this is, again, as I'm new in this role over the past 6 months, the council has not, in my 6 months here, adopted a formal classification plan. And the build out of that, in my opinion, starts with the pay scales. So in the last fiscal year, as I recapped at the outset of the meeting, and I'm just trying to pull up my notes here so I can read from it. But as I described at the work session, at the end of last fiscal year, the council approved a retroactive cost of living adjustment for fiscal 2021, retroactive merit pay for fiscal year 2021, a COLA for fiscal year 2022, that is the current fiscal year, and a supplemental increase for sworn police officers of 2%. So all of those changes were incorporated after the budget was adopted into the pay scale that was presented. In addition, built into the budget were the presumption that the town would reclassify the deputy chief position from a captain to a major, and In my subsequent discussions with the chief, that was not intended necessarily to have a fiscal impact or a change in classification, but was meant to basically swap out the captain position and rebrand that as a major position in parity with what's done in other jurisdictions and to help us in recruiting that position. And you'll recall that our current chief of police was brought in as the deputy chief. So the pay scale that's in front of the council has an orange highlighted item for the deputy chief. The ARPA position was added subsequently after the fiscal year started. So that's put in as being on the same pay scale as the sergeant position. And no new, given the parameters of that, no new column was needed for that. And the director of public works position was put in with an advertised starting range. And that required us to put in a new 44-step or 45-step scale for that position. So the purpose of this is simply to inventory those multiple council actions that took place to adjust pay at the budget adoption and the subsequent creation of the ARPA position, consolidate that all in one place so that we can build out a transparent human resource and public facing scale for the council's development and use in the future. So we would then use that scale in considering COLAs that could be added for the coming fiscal year. As I'm sure everyone is aware, inflation is a big concern that is talked about almost daily with the Fed, the newspapers, the federal government. And so its impact is eroding gradually the pay of staff over time as the costs for goods and services continues to increase. So this scale will enable us to adapt to that in the immediate future and in the budget development process as well. So I'll leave it there unless anyone has questions, but the simple ask of the council tonight is to formalize its adoption of the pay scale, and then that will be the thing that we use to recruit and hire staff in a transparent way and develop the future budget as was just discussed.
Great, thank you, Mr. McGrory. It's pretty clear. Thank you for the time it took it also in just adding these various positions in here to just make it easy for us to review. Seeing no hands at this time, I'll move forward. Is there a motion to adopt the FY 2022 Bladensburg pay scale?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Rout. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Councilmember McBride. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Mr. McGrory, for walking us through that. The next item, this was one of the adjustments we made when we amended the agenda, but to change this heading to COVID-19 for a couple of reasons. So given the uptick in cases with the surge and the latest variant, Omicron, there's issues and concerns in the community as it relates to testing. And so that is one of the items we want to touch on. We also want to touch on the potential for doing our next vaccination event. And the other item was for masks. So I'll just quickly touch on the first couple, and then I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Rout. But over the New Year, well, going into the New Year's holiday, I was approached by the Maryland Black mayors about trying to purchase rapid tests for residents. But again, it was a holiday weekend and didn't seem appropriate to try to get the staff and council engaged at that time. So I did talk to Mr. McGrory and suggest that he look into purchasing within his town administrator purchasing authority as many rapid test kits as he could get so that he could move on that immediately, and then just really work with the staff in terms of implementing how we get those out to our residents. But separate from that, Councilmember Rout had some interactions with residents expressing concerns and reached out to Mr. McGrory and suggested that maybe we just talk about it tonight so that we're not capped at the spending power of the town administrator. We really give some more latitude for him to move forward with a specified amount of test kits. And as I said to Mr. McGrory, the things are, this particular variant, it's so contagious. I feel like we need to at least offer 2 rapid test kits per household. And I don't want to get into the weeds of how the staff plans to distribute those, but just really feel like with the way this variant is working so quickly, we have a lot of people in Bladensburg who need help. But Councilmember Rout, I want to turn it over to you to talk about that as well as your concerns with the masks.
Yes, thank you, Mayor James. So not to, I agree with everything that you had shared and submitted. And in speaking with Town Administrator McGrory today, he had shared, and I don't want to speak for him. So Mr. McGrory, if you want to correct me if I get anything wrong, but in recalling our conversation that he was in attendance, he and Mr. Tonelli were in attendance on a couple of sessions with the Council of Governments. And there's a particular vendor that's used widely, and we could possibly piggyback off of that vendor, which in my opinion is a good vendor because our neighboring county, Montgomery County, piggybacked off of DC's contract. And so in my experience in working with vendors in DC, there's a particular reason why DC leaders, the school system chose this particular vendor, because if we choose to, we can be able to track the test kit through an app. So let's say Jocelyn gets this test kit, we can be able to track the data as it relates to texting positive or negative. I spoke with Councilmember Brown today as well, and she and I are very concerned because there are a couple outbreaks in our community, as you shared, Mayor James, and that testing is just really hard to come by. A lot of residents have reached out to me as early as today to say, hey, council member, do you know where I could get a test? I tried the library, was unsuccessful. I went to Bunker Hill, I was unsuccessful. Our family just really, really, really need a test. And so we have this American Rescue Plan funding, and if we could respond to our residents' needs, I think that's what we're here for. As Mr. Tonelli shared, that's our service that we're doing with our community engagement. But I think that we need to move forward, not just test, we need to be able to have residents protect themselves. Those, I'm gonna call them like the regular surgical masks that we were using in the past, those gaiters, that's not full protection, as we heard from our residents who attended our American Rescue Plan visioning session. We really need those KN95s. And so I am proposing that not only do we give out the test kits, but we also give out those KN95 masks, which could be a little costly to a resident who's, really penny pinching or really just trying to stay afloat. Those quality masks are what's going to keep that virus out of our municipality. So I am concerned that those two costs is going to bring Mr. McGrory over the threshold. And so not only should we be getting out those test kits, but I want to also say we should be able to send out 2 KN95s per household. So I just think that the council should consider this, given we have the Omicron and Delta variant that's coming together and doing this great thing. And then we also have the IHU variant that's in France and it's on its way here. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Councilmember Rout. So are there any questions from the rest of the team about what you just heard from either of us? Councilmember Brown, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. And also thank you for that, Councilmember Rout, because and just to be really short and brief, but just in support of, because with the variant And here in Bladensburg, and then when they say that there are masks and kits available at certain places, and then by the time you get there, they're all gone. So I think with this American Rescue Plan, with the funding, especially attacking it or addressing it at the front end like it's happening now, and being able to really release and allocate some of those funds to help our residents, each household with that contactless, with the mailing of those test kits and or in mass. So I just it's just it's just critical, I think, and we have 50% of the funding, so hopefully we'll be able to help out with our residents with this funding immediately.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. I don't see any other hands at this time, so would ask, is there a motion to authorize, and I'm sorry, before I go there, Councilmember Rout, did you and Mr. McGrory discuss a particular dollar amount or, okay.
No, ma'am, I don't know the actual dollar amount. When me and Ms. McGrory got off the phone today, I just sent the information or the test kit that he was familiar with. So no, I'm not sure if he has any additional information.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGrory?
Thank you, Mayor. So I can't remember whether my background is blurred or not, but if you can see these, I can't get it aligned with my face, so I guess I must have the blurring on, but this is one of the test kits. It's not the one that was covered under that contract, but we did order some test kits for staff use because we have had an alarming number of cases and an accelerating number of cases in the past month and even in the past week among the staff. So this gives me an opportunity to say, please don't come to Town Hall. Town Hall continues to be closed, and I'll reiterate that under my staff report as well. But we did also get some KN95 masks, 4 cases of those. So we have been ordering them for staff use, and so got the pipeline warmed up for this mandate. The other thing that I was going to hold up in blurry fashion is a copy of Resolution 04-2020, which relates to the state of emergency and authorizes the town administrator to take such actions as may be necessary. And in addition, the charter also gives the town administrator some latitude with emergency spending discretion to exceed the customary limits, in this case, $10,000. So all those things work together, plus the piggybacking on another competitively bid contract from another larger jurisdiction, in this case, the District of Columbia or Montgomery County, should enable me to have a good amount of flexibility. So rather than getting too far down into specifying the specific numbers or dollar amounts, you could quantify X per household as an estimate, taking into account there are some vacant, households at any given time, vacant apartments, vacant houses, etc. But if you want to specify a number per household, we can take that into account, put in a preliminary order for, say, 75% of that to get that started, and then reload that as demand picks up and as we get the distribution end settled. So I don't have any problem implementing the council's wishes if you want to put some general parameters on it. But I don't think you need to get too specific, so I'll leave it at that unless there are questions.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, Mr. McGrory, and I think that makes sense. And by show of hands, does that make sense for you all if we could come to agreement on the quantities per household? Does that work, Councilmember Blunt? Okay, Councilmember Brown, is that okay with you? Okay, all right. So my recommendation with the test kits was 2 per household because there's usually 2 test kits within each set. So theoretically, that's 4. So if a family, does test positive, then they can go and follow up with as necessary and either get, the PCR test or the other test as needed. And then when it comes to the masks, in my notes I had from Councilmember Rout, she was recommending 2 KN95 masks per household. Did I get that right? Okay, so 2 and 2. So is there a motion to authorize the town administrator to proceed with purchasing KN95 masks, 2 per household, and then 2 rapid test kits, again, 2 per households for Bladensburg residents.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Blunt. Any further discussion or comments?
Yes,
Very-
there's a little
Coun-
further discussion there. There's a little further discussion. In terms of the zinc kits, I guess there's a vendor already that we're purchasing from. Is there a particular one that we should purchase, or, you know, as under the American Rescue Plan Act? Yeah.
So just to clarify, Councilmember Brown, this is an immediate emergency purpose, so this will be out of our current operating budget, not the ARPA funds. And,
Yeah.
you know, we can look down the road in terms of reimbursing from those funds if appropriate, because that would meet the criteria, but we don't want to wait because, again, we just had the first reading tonight of the budget ordinance to adopt the ARPA funds into the town's budget. So if we wait,
Okay.
you know, for that second reading and then wait for the grants manager to be involved, we would be really holding up our ability to respond within an emergency. So the idea is that Mr. McGrory would proceed now with getting these items if there's agreement from the council.
Okay, maybe I was just a little confused because I thought since we have 50% of the funding that we can start spending the money, but
So we
I didn't think for the grants. I thought it was the town's wishes to have the grants manager there to help manage it, but I didn't realize that we could not, for this emergency purpose, we could not start spending that money. But if not, you're saying that the town would be, I guess, kind of reimbursed.
Right,
Once we
because
start
it
spending
does
money toward.
exactly, yes. But at this time, just based on our procedures and following the policy for passing a budget ordinance, even though we had the first reading tonight, that second reading won't happen until the February meeting. So if he's trying to purchase this week, legally, we're not authorized
Right.
to use those funds just yet because we haven't
Okay.
formally received them into the budget.
Okay.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
other, yes, no, glad you brought that up. Councilmember Rout?
Yes, so, I mean, so when we do the second reading, the second and final reading, would we then make a motion to journal some of those expenses? Because I know there's been expenses that we have had, like the gift cards for the incentives. So we would just journal all those expenses back, right? Okay, I just
That
want
would
to
be,
make sure.
yeah, that would be my understanding that once we have that administrator in place for the grants manager, then we can start talking through those conversations and bring all the expenses that we have incurred up to that point to identify if there's agreement for doing just that, to push that under the ARPA funding, basically reimburse the town for those expenses.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. McGrory, I see your hand.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I was just going to add to that and partly responding to that question. So one, the clock start when the ARPA legislation was passed made funds eligible for funding under that retroactively back to, I believe it's March of 2020. So, or sorry, 2021. So expenses that we've incurred going back that far are eligible for reimbursement. So we can work, we'll work up a fully transparent accounting of all that. So you'll see how that impacts the current year's budget. But that is not intended to stop us from expending funds prospective to receiving the first tranche of those funds in, I believe, August or September of last year, and the second batch of that funding now. So we can and are eligible to already spend that money. And as I mentioned, the authority that I have to continue spending that money, but the council's direction to do so is very, very helpful from a procedural standpoint and from a transparency standpoint. So if you say do X, that's great, because then we all know as a team we're working together. And then the last piece of that, just a back of the envelope calculation. We have roughly 3,800 households, including nearly 2,700 apartments, 800 single family homes, and 200 and so condominiums, nearly 300. So all of those at $11 times 2 per unit cost for the COVID test kits, and the incremental cost, it's going to be all in less than $100,000 for everything you've anticipated in this motion. So I just wanted to give you a ballpark of what the number is when we put the rubber to the road, and that's at the market rate for the mask cost that we've already incurred, and we may be able to do better than that with the test costs that we've already incurred with the bulk purchasing benefits of scaling up our orders. So it would presumably not exceed $100,000.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. McGrory. Councilmember Brown?
And just the last thing, so with the KN95 mask, are we just on adults or adults and children?
Yeah, my understanding would be for adults, because if we're doing it per household, you know, I think that would make the most sense. And even if there are children in there, I don't know, I feel like you got to protect the parents because they're the ones caring for the kids.
Yeah.
So I'd rather send 2
Yeah.
of those versus 2 child-size masks
Yeah,
and not
yeah,
have the
definitely.
parent covered.
Yeah.
But if others
And
have
it
other
makes sense,
thoughts
so
on
this,
that.
even with the 4 kits per household, because you figure by the time if like 1 or 2 people test positive, and if if you have more people in your household, then it's prudent for everybody to get a test, because at that point, at least 1 or 2 people have tested positive. So, and then they have, okay. So.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Rout?
Thank you, Mayor James. I was actually preparing a written statement to our current school board member to impress upon for our public schools that our children's masks at their school should be upgraded. So that was one thing that I would be working on to send, and I will circulate my correspondence to the town council members, because that way the kids will be covered if they attend a public school, and they could just use them. Because when we give out those KN95s in my professional setting, we do encourage the staff to wash them. So those KN95s, they're durable enough that you can rewash and reuse them. So like a couple times. So if the students are getting some KNs from their school, they can be able, they're kind of covered.
Gotcha, thank you so much. So any further discussion before we call for the vote? I don't see any other hands. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you all so much. And thank you for all the great ideas. And then last, and certainly can keep this quick, but just wanted to also mention here that in light of everything that's happening, I think we need to start preparing for our next vaccination event. And so I can connect with Councilmember Rout offline to get that going, because it does take some time to get it scheduled based on our partners with that. So just wanted to put that out there as well. We're trying to do more vaccinations, the masks, the rapid test kits, just to really help people deal with this emergency situation. And so that completes new business items for tonight. We're now into staff reports. And so, I'm sorry, I was looking down. I see another hand. Councilmember Rout.
Yes, I know we're going to connect, but for in the purposes of full transparency and listening to our residents that attended, incentives really work. So I know we just, voted for Mr. McGrory for these masks and everything, but I really think we should consider some type of incentive. I don't know what that looks like, what it is, but incentives really work to really encourage people who may be on the fence to push them over so that they can get it. That was some feedback that Councilmember Blunt got, but I mean, we had incentives for the kids, but literally like they work, and the evidence shows in research. Yeah.
Great idea. So definitely appreciate that feedback, because we have to use every tool in our toolkit to encourage people to come out and be vaccinated. So I'm trying to think. I mean, realistically, I think we'd be hard pressed to squeeze a vaccination in before the end of the month, just given schedules. So we may have to come back at the next meeting with an ask regarding any sort of, whether it's gift cards and different things from the council, or do you want to just, since we're all convened now, just do a vote to authorize Mr. McGrory to purchase gift cards once we have the vaccination event scheduled and in place, and we have an idea of how many people would be attending, to just give him the authorization to purchase some incentives. And we can work with him as well, Councilmember Rout, on what they are. Gift cards may not be the end all be all, but just to have it on the record now. So I'll entertain a motion to authorize Mr. McGrory to purchase incentives for the upcoming vaccination event that will be held by the town of Bladensburg.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Rout. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Blunt. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes
Aye.
have it. Thank you so much. Okay. And again, thank you for that. Next, we are on to staff reports. And so I don't see Mr. Hall on the line. Mr. McGrory, I don't know if you are planning to include him in your report, but I'll move on to the treasurer's report with Mr. Tonelli.
I get to go again? Good. No, actually, I'm going to defer because we already went through the financials, and we already had a big chunk of that on the agenda tonight, so I will go ahead and defer.
All right, thank you so much. And I know Chief Collington is not available this evening, but I'm sure we'll get his written report, and that'll be posted online as well. Over to you, Mr. Charnovich, for the town clerk report.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have nothing this month either. I will defer my report unless anybody has any questions for me.
All right, thank you so much. And Mr.
Thank you.
McGrory, coming over to you.
Okay, I think I finally got unblurred. So here's a test kit, and there's some masks from our order. And these are KN95 masks in individual packages. So we are actively have ordered some, have gotten some in. We've had staff use them and had tests of both kinds, positive and negative. So I do want to use we'll take the entirety of my staff report to say that please exercise caution. We are all 100% on Zoom for this meeting. And this was something the staff had talked about with the council. And I'm delighted that we are aware of the benefits of teamwork and being in the same room when you're having conversations, but this is necessary again to readapt to the current crisis that's reemerging. Staff is trying actively to do more remote work and keep staff members from interacting with each other. So we are working to do that in a way that is hopefully seamless to the public, but our message to the community remains the same, which is Town Hall is closed to the public and has been since the start of COVID. We have done that with fingers crossed during the election. We had folks come into Town Hall to cast their votes, and we've made some very, very few exceptions to that general mandate. But please take seriously and don't put staff in the position of having to come answer the door and interact with you. When those things have been necessary, we've been happy to step outside, bundle up in our hat and scarf, and wear a mask and step outside and have some brief conversations. But really, we're asking the public to do their part by communicating. If you've got a police report to file, the police has begun requesting that those routine requests for reports be done by telephone, etc. So each department is taking steps to mitigate the risk to its staff, and we appreciate the support of the public. And I since you mentioned the Public Works Department and Public Safety, everybody did a terrific job in adapting to the snowstorms last Monday. To start the new year, our first business day of the new year was a snow day. And then Friday, we anticipated some some issues as well. But thanks to the newly implemented phone system, we were able to make that, we hope, largely seamless to the public, responding to phone calls and continuing to serve the public. So I'll wrap it up there, but thank everybody for helping keep the town staff safe, and thank all of our first responders and public works crews and the rest of the civilian staff for coming in and making this remote work, or doing their bit, driving around under hazardous conditions, whether operating a plow or patrolling the community in uniform, or taking dispatch calls. So that'll conclude my summary report on behalf of the Public Safety Department, Chief Collington and Mr. Hall from the Public Works Department. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Mr. McGrory. So that completes the staff reports at this time. We'll move forward with the mayor and council reports, beginning with Councilmember McBride.
Forgot. Sorry. I attended the Yule Log with the seniors from Parkview. I truly enjoyed it. And they did too, especially the marshmallows. I attended the toy drive. It's my Diane Fennell and Senator Augustine. And I attended the computer raffle with Councilmember Blunt, which I truly enjoyed, at Emerson House. And then she did the next one at Parkview. I attended that one. And I missed the one for Emerson, for Newton Green. And I did sign up for the farm committee. I received my welcome email from them, and I will be attending the first virtual session on February 11th. That's it.
Great, thank you, Councilmember McBride. We'll turn it over to Councilmember Blunt for the next report.
Happy New Year's to everyone. Only have two things. I attended the vaccination shot for this route while she was delivering her bundle of joy. And also, I want to thank Bob McGorry and Rich for being there with me to give out those computers. I tell you, seniors are something, but I love them. So again, that's all I have. But I really want to thank you all for taking me around and delivering those computers. It made it easy for me. Thanks.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Councilmember Blunt. Next, we'll move over to Ward 1 with Councilmember Rout.
I want to provide an overview. I participated in a lot of virtual things since I was in my final month. At the last council meeting, I wasn't present because I was in the hospital giving birth. Well, I was recovering from giving birth. I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Her name is Jordan. And I am delighted that she is here. And so I have just been taking this time to bond with her, but I have been responding to residents' requests via email. So one thing I would like to highlight is the illegal fireworks that has been taking place in Ward 1. Not sure if it's happening in Ward 2, but it definitely has been happening in Ward 1. So much that Jordan's sleep is, kind of broken when she heard those fireworks, as well as our dogs are affected, our pets. And there are lots of individuals who suffer from mental health issues like PTSD. And so I just want our residents to be aware that, you may be celebrating holiday seasons, but it is, if though fireworks do affect other residents, and let's operate being good neighbors to one another, because fireworks are illegal in Prince George's County and definitely illegal here in the town of Bladensburg. And so I've spoken with Chief Collington, and he will be doing more with reminding our residents that fireworks are illegal, especially around our holidays, because it seems that that's where we get an uptick. But I just wanted to make that announcement today. And so I'm looking forward to working with the mayor and the town council on our COVID mitigation strategies, responding to residents' needs, looking at our storm drain issues that I've received some correspondence from multiple residents. And then today, the parking issue. I think we need to reenact the parking committee and their work and see how we can move forward. I want to take this time of personal privilege just to thank my colleagues for all of the gifts and the labors of love that you've given Miss Jordan and myself. I want to thank residents for the food you all have been dropping off to me. I really feel loved, and I'm ready to go back to work. Honestly, I'm ready. So I have a couple more weeks, and you can email me if you need me. That's the best way. And just to keep your mask on when you're around others. I don't care if you're going just to visit your neighbor, your family member, mask up so we can stomp out this COVID. Mask up, COVID down. All right, thank you everyone. Feel back.
Thank you, Councilmember Rout. And again, we congratulate you on the addition to your family last month on the day of our meeting. It's a special day. Next, we'll go over to Councilmember Brown for Ward 1.
I like that Councilmember Rout, mask up, COVID down. Well, I want to say Happy New Year. So once again, to all the to the mayor, council staff, and residents. Want to just be real brief. During December, attended the of course the District 47 legislative toy drive, which was held outside as well due to the COVID. And also, I do want to congratulate the Bladensburg finalists, those who received awards, and even just our officers again who work tirelessly every day and keeping the Bladensburg residents safe. So thank you all thank you all as well. Yeah, that was our first, or my first, and our new Councilwoman McBride's first town meeting. So it went pretty well. I just like I said, don't have a lot. I mean, just looking at moving forward, working with the mayor and council and the town residents and the staff on a lot of the great works and opportunities that we have before us. So I'm just very excited about making sure that we continue to do the work for the for our town people, continue to be the public servants that we were hired to be. So that's really pretty much what I have to say there. And but yes, definitely, stay safe, you and your families, and look forward to more future and interaction with the residents.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Councilmember Brown. And so I'll be brief as well. So last month was a busy one with the holidays, holiday travel and the like, but I did have the opportunity to facilitate our last MMA exec committee meeting. We're working on the annual winter conference and just kind of trying to decide whether it needs to be virtual or in person, given the upticks. A lot's going on there. Also had an opportunity along with Councilmember Brown to attend the World Ebony Network event on December 10th, which was a great opportunity to interact with some of our African immigrants in the community and just make the connections. We during the event, it was a holiday reception, but we heard from one of our local students, Isatu, I forget her last name, but she's a student at International High School of Langley Park, and just shared how important it is to have certain services for students who are immigrants to this country, learning English for the first time in high school, plus the subjects, math, and adapting to the US culture. And so it was really a good eye-opening opportunity to remember our children and the experiences and support that they need as they're making adjustments into our society, our educational systems, and so forth. And of course, she was accompanied by her teacher, who we all know, Miss Kashia Thorpe. Enjoyed being a part of the annual Shop with a Cop event and want to shout out the police department, in particular, Officer Cedric Tanksley, who spearheaded that. We also were fortunate to receive some support from Toyota of Bowie with that, so we were able to be a blessing to more children this year. But as in previous years, it was amazing to see so many police officers from so many different jurisdictions just coming together, spending the time one-on-one with these kids, talking to them, finding out what they're interested in as they were doing their shopping, and just to see our officers or state troopers in a different light, because, as most of us know, state troopers don't smile, but they smile for these kids. So it was just really a beautiful experience to have. And the owners of Toyota Bowie also enjoyed or attended as well. There was another toy drive in the community, which I had a chance to attend, by Now Foundation. And these young men who are in charge of this foundation do so many awesome things in our community, back to school giveaways. And they helped over 400 families with diapers, wipes, toys, blankets, and food over at the Bladensburg Community Center. So it was really great being able to connect with them. And then, as you all know, as a town of Bladensburg event, we had our very first Merry and Bright bike ride on December 11th. And that was a wonderful event in partnership with Park and Planning. And so everyone who's either on the Zoom room right now or watching on social media, we need you to be prepared, because we need to do this again in December 2022 and get more families out there on the trail, just doing something different for the holidays. But it really was a great opportunity to come together and have a unique outdoor experience for the holidays. An important event that happened also was the Prince George's County Municipal Association's legislative meet and greet on December 14th. Councilmember Brown and I attended that, and that's where we presented the legislative priorities to our state, county, and federal officials. It was a reception with the idea of not having a sit-down dinner because of COVID and having a lot of long-term interaction. People could just kind of come in on a flow. And I think that it worked very, very well, just given the situation that we're in. Cards were produced with the legislative priorities on, almost like a bookmark. So we made sure that our legislators walked away knowing what the specific things are that we need their help on, because we don't just want them to come and eat a piece of chicken. We want them to remember we need their help throughout the year with many, many priorities. So on the state side, it was construction, maintenance, and replacement of sidewalks in our communities, bus stop shelters along state roads. Police reform is still on our list. And then for county legislation incorporating inclusionary zoning and accessory dwelling units, county zoning laws, county partnerships, meaning expanding access to county crisis intervention services. And then not that it's necessarily a legislative priority, but we're asking for support with the state legislation on a priority for MML, which is really the restoration of highway user funds, because while we have them, we advocated for them for a few years, we got them back, but the reality is they sunset in a few years. And so we really need to lock in steady income for the municipalities from the highway user revenues so that we can stabilize our budgets, knowing that those funds will be coming in from year to year. So again, everything else is written up. I think, Mr. Chernovich, I'll email this to you as soon as we wrap up so you have the final copy. But with that, that completes my report and brings us to the final item on tonight's agenda, which is adjournment. I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. I think we had some very productive back and forths and conversations, and just look forward to moving forward on the ideas, the priorities, and projects that we discussed tonight. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Moved by Councilmember Blunt. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by, I saw Councilmember Rao. Any further discussion?
Yes,
Hearing
Mayor
none.
James.
Yes.
I do have some discussion. We were just emailed, and I think for the residents tuning in, we were emailed by County Exec also Brooks. I put the information in the chat. If a resident needs a testing kit immediately, there will be a distribution at the closest one is the Kentland Community Center to us. It's tomorrow Wednesday at 10 a.m. and Thursday at 8 a.m. And it's on a first come, first served basis. It's for residents 2 and up, and proof of PG residency will be required. So if a government issued ID, a lease, a utility bill, But if our residents need test kits, they can go on Wednesday and Thursday. And I'm sure Mr. McGrory will have our staff put this information out because we were all just emailed this, but it was like hot off the press and I just wanted to share it just now.
Yeah, thank you. Because between navigating
Yes.
the agenda
Yes.
and
Yeah.
this, it's good to have other people with eyes and ears on email and everything
yes.
else. Thank you for that. And so totally agree. If we could get an email blast out tomorrow, it's too late tonight, but tomorrow, just alerting residents, that would be helpful, Mr. McGrory. And with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye. Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you all so much. We're adjourned.
Good night.